Welcome back once again, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags. It is I, Mo Thepuppet, your resident Fabrican and commentator extraordinaire on all things pop culture. And of course, this is the Super Not Funny show where we talk about all things pop culture. We're talking about games, movies, TV shows, video games, comics, anything that floats your pop culture boat. This week on the show, we're going to be reviewing Lupin, the new Netflix show, and The Little Things, starring Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, streaming on HBO Max. And of course, we're going to be covering all the new threads for the week, and we'll be talking about our weekly distractions. All right, strap in, kiddos. We're going to dive right in with this week's new threads. The pop culture landscape is filled with all sorts of news during the week, but we got a few for you that we thought you might be interested in that stood out to us, and we call them our new threads. And these are just been culled from the internet, interesting stories that kind of caught our eye. So, what are our new threads for this week? Well, first off, we're going to talk about HBO Max and the success, that's right, I say success, of Wonder Woman 1984. Yeah, I know it hasn't been exactly the most well received, and even I, as much as I liked it, didn't love it, but apparently, according to HBO Max and according to Nielsen, Wonder Woman 1984 did its job and increased the subscriber base of HBO Max for Q4 of 2020 to 17. I think they are up 17 million. So you can't look at that as anything but success. And I think this actually bolsters Warner Media and HBO Max in their push to get all their theatrical on same-day release on HBO Max and into theaters. And as you remember, that's a 1-month window where it's going to be on HBO Max. It looks like that this may be a winning strategy for the rest of the year. We shall see. I know that The Little Things, which we are going to be reviewing later on in this show, is part of that whole initiative. But if you are a Warner Media exec and were questioning whether or not you should have done the whole same-day release thing and kind of pissed everybody off, this gives you a little ammunition, I suppose, to explain yourself or at least justify yourself. So, good for Warner, good for HBO Max. HBO Max is a great service, actually, and it would be nice to see more people recognize that. They've got great content over there. Our next new thread, this is a personal interest to me. Do you guys all remember the show The Wonder Years from back in the day? Fred Savage talking about growing up in the 60s. Well, there is going to be a reboot. Well, maybe not reboot. Maybe a reimagining. I'm not sure how to explain it, but there is going to be a new Wonder Years. But this time around, it's going to be focused on a black family in Montgomery, Alabama, in the same era, in the 60s. And if you know your American history at all, that was a very turbulent and, shall we say, fraught with peril for black people and for any freedom-loving people who were coming down to the South to try to deal with the realities of racism and Jim Crow. So it should be interesting to see from the perspective of someone who's growing up in a very notorious city during the Civil Rights era. And in fact, as I've recalled, I believe this is drawn from life experience of the creator of the show. So I really liked the Wonder Years in this original incarnation, and I think that this new look, this new interpretation, it has so much potential for just dramatic and interesting storytelling and just offering new perspectives. So I personally am very excited about this, and I'm glad that they are getting to put a pilot out. And we'll just see. Hopefully the pilot's good and they'll pick it up. There, of course, are this is pilot season, so many other pilots are going to pilot order. And we will keep you apprised of any of the interesting projects that are coming down the pipe. Another interesting development on the TV side, streaming in particular, we see reports that this week that Ryan Coogler has signed an overall deal with his Proximity Media company with Disney TV to develop, among other things, a Wakanda TV series for Disney Plus. And this, of course, we've talked about the MCU in this year, and that there's MCU big plans on Disney Plus. MCU is a big part of Disney Plus, and it's pushed to expand its streaming platform. So this is just another brick on that path, if you will. And it only makes sense because Black Panther was so successful, and everyone likes the more MCU stuff. WandaVision has finally hit its stride. So more MCU, yay. I'm particularly interested in this because Ryan Coogler, besides doing Black Panther, also did Creed, and that was a pretty good movie. Actually, it was a really great movie. And Fruitvale Station, he's an up-and-coming director. He's got a very strong voice, a great talent, and it looks like Marvel is doing the right thing, and that's really locking in their most promising talents and giving them more to work with, giving them more to do. It's a win-win for everybody. And as an aside, I do believe, since Proximity Media is attached to this whole deal, and by the way, it's not just for the Wakanda TV show, it's to develop other things in the MCU as well for streaming, and possibly, I suppose if he's good at that, they'll do more movies. But this also includes, as a part of Proximity Media, someone who is already familiar working with Disney, partly because of Black Panther and also because of The Mandalorian. That is Ludwig Göransson, who is, again, he's an Oscar winner, an Oscar-winning composer, and he's just doing bang-up work wherever he goes, it's particularly for Disney. So it only makes sense. This is just, it just really is a win-win all the way around. For us, for Coogler and Göransson, for Disney. So cool. That's awesome. Can't wait to see the developments come out of this. Of course, last week, this is only related to pop culture because it has to do with gaming and with movies. And you couldn't get away from it. The GameStop short selling, what would you call it, story, the phenomenon, where last week a group of investors, small investors on the Wall Street Bets subreddit, they executed a plan to take advantage of hedge funds who had massively shorted stock in GameStop and AMC and many other things, taking advantage of their shorting these massively, exploiting their exposure on these particular stocks in order to drive the stock price up by buying the hell out of them and forcing them to sell at ridiculous prices. That's interesting and cool, but what's actually important, what you should pay attention to as a follower of pop culture, and particularly if you like movies and you like video game stores, is the fact that as a result of this, well, GameStop, they weren't really in a super bad way, but this is literally raised money for both of these companies. And for me personally, AMC is the big story because, as I understand it, their entire year of loss, last year was a horrible year for the movie industry and AMC in particular, because they had a lot of debt due to upgrades and everything. They were doing for good business reasons. They had a lot of debt, but last year came and screwed them over pretty hard. And my understanding is that between a new round of investor funding, loans in other words, and also selling stock at the ridiculously high prices, they were able to essentially put themselves in the black for the past year, despite all of the difficulties that really ruined their ledger. So awesome. That's all I can say. Awesome. I want AMC to continue. The studios want AMC to continue as the biggest, not distributor, but the biggest displayer of movies in the United States, and owners of stakes of other movie theater chains around the world. They want them to be healthy. I want them to be healthy because the movie theater is the best place to see movies. And it's just really awesome that as a side effect of the foolishness, and I'll call it that, the foolishness of hedge funds and the savvy of some enterprising individuals, we may see, they may have inadvertently just kind of shored up the movie theater business just long enough for them to get their legs back under them. And if that's true, if I'm able to go to the Dolby Theater at my local AMC and see something and be confident it's going to be open, I say hats off to them. So thank you, investors trying to make a buck off of greedy hedge funds. Woo. So, last and certainly not least, we want to be serious now and mark the passing of two, and these aren't the only two people that passed, but two names in the acting community. We say rest in peace to Cicely Tyson, I would say a giant among actors, trailblazer, a woman of character, a woman who really struck the path, I suppose you could say, for black actresses, and had some really meaty roles, showed what could be possible. And if you look around Twitter or on the internet, there are so many tributes to her. I personally haven't seen a lot of her work, but I have seen enough to know that she deserved the accolades. She passed away at the age of 96. Lived a long and apparently good, full life, accomplished many things, and I'm not sad so much as just appreciative, because I know that the Denzel Washingtons of the world are here because she was there. And she's just going to continue to inspire generations of actors to come, not just black, but of all colors, because great acting is great acting, and she's an example. So we say rest in peace, Cicely Tyson. And on another sad note, we also say rest in peace for Dustin Diamond. Not accomplished like Cicely Tyson, but memorable. If you grew up in the 90s, you would know him as Screech from Saved by the Bell. And he, let's be honest, fame and everything wasn't so easy to do, wasn't so easy to deal with as he transitioned away from that show in his 20s, and he had a very troubled life, drugs and the like taking their toll on him. But ultimately, we recently found out he was sick. He found out a few weeks ago that he had stage 4 lung cancer, and tried to get it treated, but was not able to overcome the disease, unfortunately. And just as someone who has some experience, looking after someone who's going through cancer treatment, I can just imagine just how devastating that was, especially to his family, but also to us fans who, while it may have been funny or jokey or whatever, I don't know, his issues were real, and to just have 3 weeks to live, it's not anything anyone wants, and it's not funny, and honestly, I didn't realize how much I would miss. I would actually say, hey, I'll miss that guy. Not because he's in my life or I see him all the time, but because just the idea that at 44 to be taken so quickly, and there was a potential for him to come back to the reboot of Saved by the Bell. It's just unfortunate. So I do want to say again, rest in peace to Dustin Diamond, his unfortunate path and untimely passing, and he will be missed. Well, that concludes all the new threads for the week. I'm sure I missed so many because there's so much that comes out in entertainment news. What did you think I missed? What should I have covered? Why don't you let me know down in the comments, or you can shoot me an email, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, or on Twitter @supernotfunnys1. I'd love to hear from you. Those are our new threads for the week, and we're going to move on to our main topic. Our main topic, of course, being Lupin from Netflix and The Little Things. We're going to review those in just a moment. All right, you Fabricans and Fleshbags. Our main topic this week, we're doing a little reviewing. First up, we're going to be talking about Lupin, streaming on Netflix. Lupin's a French show, a French produced show, Netflix exclusive, and it's, I guess you could say, it almost makes you want to say like an Ocean's movie or an Ocean's show, Ocean's 11 show. It's a show about a man named Hassan Diop, who is an unlikely gentleman thief inspired by the French literary hero Arsène Lupin. When he pulls off the heist of a famed necklace from a powerful family out of revenge for the death of his father, he must then use all of his skills and his cunning to expose the truth and to protect his family from reprisal. It's a 5-episode series, limited series. Well, I wouldn't even say limited series because it's pretty clear there's going to be a second season of this. But it's one of those European things where they apparently can only do, 5 episodes, 6 episodes. But in those 5 and 6 episodes, there's a lot of quality, a lot of good stuff to see. What you find in here is a heist/caper sort of show that is just kind of a veneer, a sort of backdrop. And I don't want to call it a backdrop, but it's sort of a setup for what actually ends up being an examination of both class and race and the privilege and expectation that go along with it. There's also a central mystery, as I mentioned, about the death of Hassan's father. There's danger, and there's all sorts of ways that he goes about trying to expose what happened. And in particular, like I said, the whole class and race commentary. And it's, in my mind, it's very striking that that in a country like France, most Americans aren't aware of, but in France, they've grappled with their colonial heritage and how to deal with, respond, what have you, with the black and brown immigrants that came along with their colonialism. And it's interesting that the son of a Senegalese immigrant, Hassan Diop, would embrace a national literary hero and kind of carry that hero's heritage forward. And along with that, as I said with class, there's the idea of powerful people ruining regular people just for their own gain, and the way they use race and money and their privilege, they kind of weaponize it to sort of get their way. It's it's very much on display in this particular show. Um, Hassan's a very smart, dedicated, and capable thief that can pull off heists, and that he has to use all of his skills to go against the resources of this family that include like the police, journalists that are complicit, even hitmen. And so it's a formidable challenge for one person. The show outright promises capers and heists and the like, and it sort of delivers, but maybe not as much as I was expecting. And actually, the show sort of turns away from the caper aspect at one point and becomes something else. But the capers that do happen, they're pretty fun and clever to watch. They're clever and fun to watch. Really makes you think of things like The Hustle or Ocean's 11 or that show Leverage. They also humanize, not just humanize, but really kind of delve into Hassan's background. It's a very sympathetic backstory, very tragic backstory, and it also seems like something that could actually happen to someone. He turns out to be a complicated man, scarred by trauma from his teens. That's ultimately a good person, likable and relatable, but not a perfect person, and in some ways, capable of doing some not so good things in the name of doing good overall. This show really tries to answer the question that I think some of us sometimes ask about stuff like Ocean's 11. Like, if this happened in real life, how successful would a thief really be? And there are some mostly realistic outcomes to the way Hassan conducts his life as his alter ego, the thief. They do show him not just being a thief, that's not his only life, but he does have a family and a son that he doesn't live with but gets to see, and how he tries not to disappoint him and to pass on his love of our son Lupin. I'm saying Lupin. Lupin, that's the way you're supposed to say it. Part of the interest of this show is, as the central mystery, the central conflict plays itself out, you see that Hassan's strengths, his application of Lupin's methods and life philosophy, may also contribute to his undoing. Or it could be that his desire for revenge and to personally not just take it personal, but to signal that it's him that is taking revenge could also be part of it. As a result of his doggedness to pursue this vendetta, if you will, he accrues some collateral damage, and we're not sure yet if he's really capable of paying the price. But we do know that his pursuit of being the Lupin sort of estranges him from his wife and his son, but also puts them in danger and puts other allies in danger. There are some interesting things that happen in this show. For instance, a prison break-in / breakout. But a lot of these things are sometimes a little too convenient and a little unbelievable. Like just the way of breaking in and out seems not real, a little too easy. And there's a point where he tries to present evidence to the world and in the dumbest way possible doesn't have backups. I mean, it's crazy stuff that you wouldn't believe in this day and age. Overall, though, a lot of very good performances. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. There are a few side plots that aren't particularly compelling, but overall, you have a main character that's very competent, very good at what he does and thinks and sees far ahead versus people who don't even know who he is or people that do know who he is that have a lot of resources. So he's forced to kind of use all of his arrows in his quiver, if you will, to stay ahead and to try to actually reveal the truth. And it's all very interesting, very well laid out package, very beautiful. We get to see actual France and not fake France like we're used to seeing in American productions. I think it's new and engaging and more grounded version of the heist stories that we all like again Ocean's 11, Leverage, but it's got a more personal story driving the plot. It does sometimes steer or veer into meta commentary, if you will, a very meta story, particularly on the police investigation side, because of course there has to be police detectives trying to find him. Why wouldn't it be? But the police investigation angle sometimes just feels like straight up exposition to explain what's going on. And unfortunately, the villain is a little too rote and predictable. Like, you pretty much you can guess, if not guess outright, say straight up, okay, this is the conflict. This is why. This is what the bad guy did, etc. But the show shines brightest in the execution of the capers, and also in the flashbacks to Hassan's early life that kind of explain his motivation and why he is the person he is. But unfortunately, it kind of leaves the central conflict unresolved, and with just 5 episodes, it feels a bit like a tease. It's very solid. To very good performances, as I mentioned. Particularly strong is Omar Sy, the main character playing Hassan. But Jen and I, we had a lot of fun with this. And I can confidently recommend this to you to just take a few hours, binge it, and be mad because who knows? I'm certain that they've renewed it, but we don't know when it's going to come out. Maybe next year, maybe this year. I don't know. But it'd be interesting to see that second season. Again, highly recommend it. Check it out on Netflix. You won't be disappointed. Next is The Little Things from HBO Max and starring Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. Joe Deacon, a former detective at the LA County Sheriff, returns to the city only to get sucked into the investigation of serial murders that appear similar to several murders he'd failed to solve. He, along with lead detective Jimmy Baxter, played by Rami Malek, attempt to get evidence of guilt against a likely suspect, Albert Swarma, played by Jared Leto. As the deadline to get the case grows near, the two kindred spirits, that would be Joe Deacon and Jimmy Baxter, push themselves to great lengths to get the truth. If this looks like a throwback to 90s serial killer thrillers, well, there's a reason for this, because this is a movie almost 30 years in the making. It's a serial killer thriller, but with a twist. It promises the serial killer story. I have to say, unfortunately, doesn't quite deliver it. This is, again, a throwback, and it really looks like a 90s period piece. It's so weird to say that, actually, that there's a period piece for the 90s, but that's what it is. Down to, like, all the cars. Like, one of the things I noticed very early on is all the cars are period correct. There are none of the current era sneaks in like it might do in other movies that don't quite have the budget to close off streets or get all the cars and all that right. And in that way, it feels correct. Everything feels correct. This movie all starts off and very inauspiciously with Denzel Washington as a sheriff's deputy, but he gets to L.A. and there he meets, I guess, the guy that replaced him at the L.A. County Sheriff, and they hint at a reason why Joe no longer works there and all that. It looks in the first interactions like this is going to be an old school versus new school professional rivalry between Joe and Jimmy. And they play that out a little bit at first, but it soon becomes clear that it's more about mutual respect than rivalry. This movie then proceeds to sort of examine the nature of police work and the police that work homicides and the similar traits between them that make them good at being detectives, and sort of asks or shows how maybe those same traits can be destructive. The idea of the one that got away, the unsolved cases that loom large over their lives and never quite go away, this is a common theme, trope, whatever you will, and it's fully on display here. Joe hasn't let that case go, and in fact he's so personalized that he even fantasizes the victims, and it's very, I have to be honest, kind of strange and off-putting that he's just so obsessed. And ultimately, the movie seems to want to talk about how history can repeat itself. How two similar people in the same job might inevitably take the same path. Joe really is Jimmy's future if he lets the job control him. And this is driven home in the finale, where sort of, I don't want to say mirror image, but very similar situations involving accidental killings and subsequent cover-ups play out. And also this revelation goes on to explain the estrangement of Joe from his previous job and his previous marriage, and just where he is in life, and how the cover-ups sort of scars everyone who knew about it. Jared Leto is pretty great, actually, if a little one note as Sparma. He's not given a huge amount. What he's given, he really digs into it, chews it up, and really makes a very disturbing suspect. He's such a likely suspect, even this Sparma guy, that, when they do kind of throw the twist in at the end, it makes sense why they would do that at the end. What seems like a cat and mouse game between him and the police seems, in retrospect, it seems just to be a smart guy looking for attention. Or is it? This kind of goes against expectations and thwarts the whole 90s thriller motif, where we expect to get definitive answers and a concrete villain. He is anything but in this movie. He is something. He may even be playing into confirmation bias, and he's obviously very aware of not just the case, but the way police think about these things. In movies like this, the common trope is cops going vigilante because they can't get real justice, or it's okay to skirt the line or step over it as long as you get your man, or hey, the bad old days of the LAPD. Those are things that got results. This movie uses that trope, but in a very unexpected way. Just the fact that they won't say for sure that Sparman was a killer, or even introduce doubt at the end of the movie as to whether he ever really was guilty, really kind of throws a wrench into the whole tropey-filled thriller killer serial killer thing that was a common sort of movie of that era. Denzel Washington, of course, is solid. He's he's solid. But in some ways, he is playing a role we've already seen before. But this time, he's just a little more washed up. Rami Malek as a cocksure and doggedly determined to get his man sort of police officer, something we've seen before, but he does bring all his skills to fore. Again, with not a huge amount of great material here, but he makes something good out of it. The Little Things is a pretty good movie, but with a not so good ending that ultimately drags it just down to just okay. Well, maybe it's because the trailers promised a different movie than we got. A solid performance from Denzel, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto keep things interesting until this ending, but they can't save it from the disappointment. I feel like it's more a character study than a true thriller, and it lacks the tension you'd expect in key moments of the movie. Its subversion of the genre tropes are interesting, but honestly not all that compelling. I get the feeling that this movie would have been better if it had just been telling the story that it wanted to lean on, that of the past repeating itself, and a cop's obsession, than teasing mind games with a serial killer that never quite materialize. If you have HBO Max and this is your type of movie, I'd say go for it. But it's certainly something you can miss and no reason to sign up for the service. Overall, I'd say it's a disappointment and a missed opportunity. I did really want to like it, was really excited for it, and except for those last 20 minutes, it delivered, but the last 20 minutes were enough to say just you can pass. It's not great. All right, so those are my reviews for the two streaming offerings, Lupin for Netflix and The Little Things on HBO Max. Check them out and let me know what you thought about these reviews. Were they good, bad? Hey, shoot me a comment down below, or you can email me, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, or on Twitter @supernotfunnys1. I'd love to hear from you. With that said, we're moving on to our next segment, and that is our weekly distractions. Time again for our weekly distractions. In this world full of craziness and just things that want to bring you down, we instead intend to distract ourselves away from that foolishness with our weekly distractions. So those are things we're watching, reading, or just playing. So, what were the weekly distractions this week? Well, the movie we watched, besides what we did in the main segment, we watched Venom this week. Cracked open that old Blu-ray and watched that again. And hey, it's still a fun, silly, sometimes really dumb, but ultimately entertaining ride. And it just really puts me in the mind that I can't wait until we see Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. There's going to be carnage. Can't wait to see that. It's really good. Hey, it got a lot of crap when it came out, but F that. It's just fun. On the TV front, lots of TV. Started watching His Dark Materials on HBO Max. And it's in its second season now. Started watching the first season. Based on the books by Philip Pullman, The Golden Compass. And a book series I really like. And so far enjoying this first season of the show. I wish it wouldn't slow walk things so much. I get it. You have an hour to tell a story. You don't have to take the whole hour if you don't have an hour's worth of shit to say. Just saying. Don't have to slow walk everything. But Daphne Keene's doing a great job as Lyra, and Ruth Wilson is wonderfully cruel. And there's a lot of good things happening in there. A lot of fantastical things. CG's looking good. I'm enjoying it. Can't wait to get to the end of it. And considering a season review, I guess, when we're done with it. Of course, we've been watching the Goldbergs. They had a new episode this last week. It was mostly on form, fun stuff. I still sort of feel like maybe the Goldbergs has hit the point where maybe they should consider wrapping it up. I certainly hope so. Do believe they probably have one more season left in them, but they need to sort of step it up. This season had been fairly meh. Continue watching The State. Funny, very much of the 90s humor, but good stuff. Enjoying that on CBS All Access. And of course, we are still watching The Stand and WandaVision as they go week to week. So, good week for television. I have been listening to some audiobooks. Finished up the Firstborn trilogy by Arthur C. Clarke and Stephen Baxter. Really, really good stuff, but damn, it's disappointing that Arthur C. Clarke's death just basically killed a series that obviously was meant to go on for at least another 2 books. So that kind of sucks, but you know, it happens. And finally, I've been playing some Street Fighter, just a little bit. I suck at that game so much. I want to be good at that game, but I don't have the time for it. So just dug into it a little bit just for fun. All right, besides that, got this week. I know we're going to be doing this week in anticipation of next week's show, which is going to be The High Republic, Part 2. Looking forward to The High Republic Adventures and The High Republic Comic Issue 2. And of course, there's going to be a new YA novel from Claudia Gray. So looking forward to that this week. And just like I said, finishing up his Dark Materials. That's all my distractions for the week. What are you guys being distracted with? Why don't you let me know in the comments below? And of course, at supernotfunnyshow, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com for email, and at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter. Well, we've reached the end of the Super Not Funny Show for the week. And we thank you so much for joining us. We really hope you guys enjoyed the show this week. As always, you can contact us with comments, constructive criticism, just to tell us we suck, I guess. Email is supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter, or you can leave a comment down below. And if you like this, hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to the show, we'd appreciate that. And hit the notification bell so you'll know when we drop more content. We've expanded into reviews and reactions, so those are always fun. Come check them out. Check on our page, on our YouTube page, to get a look at those. As I said, next week, Star Wars The High Republic Part 2. And we're going to dig into the new offerings. Should be fun. Come back and join us next week for that. All right, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags, I have been Mo Thepuppet, your resident Fabrican and commenter extraordinaire about all things pop culture. You guys stay safe out there and keep it real. We'll see you on the other side of the thread. All right, peace.